Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was True Red Dragon Emperor Part 4. Chapter 21. 1 year later Issei is 8 years old. He was walking to school with his 4 wives. Kunu and Celia had Issei arms around them. As Yusaka and Esha behind Issei. They were starting a new school year. He was going in 2nd grade. Celia spoke, "We had so much in the summer." Issei nodded knowing he destroyed his wives during the summer. He wondered how they wanted more of him. Yusaka and Esha kissed Issei before they left. They were adding sway to their hips. Issei loved them, the movement of their bodies. Celia and Kunu had a pout face. They had the same classroom together. Issei was chatting to his wives, then a man entered the classroom and everyone looked at him. The man, "Hello students, I'm here to present you our new teacher. Ms. Yua." The new teacher came in. She had blonde hair and long that reaches top of her mid-back. She had green eyes. The most noticeable was her bust size. They were about the size Yusaka and Esha. Issei was looking at the principal and he had a small drool on his face. Issei learned that the principal was divorced and he eyeing on the new teacher. Then the principal left. Ms. Yua spoke, "Thank you for having me. I'll do my best to be a good teacher." All the students clapped their hands and welcomed the teacher. Kunu and Celia were looking Issei, but Issei was focused on studies. Kunu and Celia were relieved that Issei knew to act in different places. Ms. Yua spoke, "Alright, time to introduce yourself kids and tell me what you like to do." Each student went on about they like to do, like gaming, playing, and studying. Then the Kunu turned and spoke, "I'm Kunu, what I like is to do is see sending photos to my friends." Issei felt like sweating that Kunu was about to reveal her secrets. Then Ms. Yua looks at Celia. Celia spoke, "My name's Celia, what I like to do is to have fun with my friends." Issei felt like dying from embarrassment. Issei kept his straight face. Celia finally looks at Issei and asks, "Your name?" Issei stood up and responded, "I'm Issei, I like to exercise." Ms. Yua looks at Issei carefully and noticed the build-up under his shirt. She spoke to herself, "Oh my. He's well built. I might no. Keep your head together. But this is like one of my fantasies. A forbidden relationship with a teacher and a student." Issei sat down on his chair, but Ms. Yua had a blush on her face. Kunu and Celia knew what their teacher is thinking. After a few months Ms. Yua noticed Issei's demeanor. He was always respectful and well-focused. The more she thinks of him, the more she fantasies of him. During testing Ms. Yua would had her eyes on Issei's body. His muscles were seen through his tight shirt. Whenever she talked to him she was always blushes. Issei doesn't notice her reaction. During one class Issei needed help on an assignment and asked Ms. Yua for help. Ms. Yua would help him, but putting her bust against Issei's face hoping him to notice. Issei noticed it, but not had any reaction. He thinks the teacher didn't had much space so he moved. Then Ms. Yua moves to Issei. Kunu and Celia broke their pencils. Seeing their teacher trying to do. As long as Issei is willing to accept or not. One time Issei had a change of clothes in the gym. He went to his locker and his shirt was gone. It was the one was covered in sweat was gone. Issei spoke, "Who took my shirt?" "Oh well, I'll find it later." Issei placed his new shirt and continued with school. One day he was about to walk away from school, but remember he left backpack in class. Kunu and Celia went ahead of him. Issei was walking to class. He stopped at the door. Before he opened the door he heard muffled noises. He heard, "Oh. I shouldn't do this." Issei thought it his teacher making a grade correction. He entered the class and saw unexpected. Lemon. He saw Ms. Yua sitting on Issei's desk. She was fingering herself and had Issei's shirt to her nose. Then Ms. Yua noticed Issei standing in the class. She was highly embarrassed that one of her students saw her, especially who she fantasies about. Issei spoke, "Well, I'm not asking." Issei approached his desk and grabbed his backpack. Then Ms. Yua spoke, "Wait." Issei looks at his teacher and paid attention. Well. I like you, Issei, the teacher spoke. Issei could feel himself face-palmed. How luck he has with women. Issei spoke, "I don't know how to respond. Look, you are beautiful and kind. I don't think you can. I don't care. All I want is to love you. The day you were in my class. I couldn't stop myself thinking about you." Ms. Yua spoke. Issei was in confusion, a teacher liking him as a lover. He never thought this would happen. She spoke, "You don't love me?" She felt like crying. "I do. Never thought this would happen. I never expressed my feelings to you, the fear of rejection." Issei responded as he remembered back with his childhood friend. Ms. Yua smiled and asked, "You have anyone in mind?" "Yeah, 4 girls." Issei responded. Then she asked again, "Are you dating one of them?" "Well. All 4 of them. They know I'm with them. If you want I'll accept it." Issei responded. Then Ms. Yua hugged Issei tightly. She spoke, "I love you, Issei. I wanted this kind of relationship." Then she began to undress herself and Issei took off his clothes. She began to kiss him passionately. Issei kissed back with passion. Issei placed his hands on her large breasts and began massage them. She began moan. "Ah. Issei, you're good. I guess you have experience." She spoke in pleasure. Issei spoke, then I'll make you feel better. He began to suck her breasts and she was getting corrupt. After minutes of teasing, she began to take off his boxer and began to suck his larger member. As always Issei came inside of her mouth and she swallowed it. Some spilled to her breasts. She loved his pervert side. She didn't care they were judged, only she wants his Issei. She spoke, ah. So much. I never get tired of this. Then she positioned herself on Issei. She felt bit of pain, but pleasure came. She was riding him, then Issei decided spank her ass, which she welcomed it. Then Issei came inside of her and she didn't care getting into a mess. Issei started give her different positions. After a few hours she was mess and broken. She loved being in his harem and she'll keep the relationship a secret. He made sure his new lover wouldn't be caught. He made sure everything was normal. End of lemon. Issei would go class and Mizuo would get close to him. Kunu and Celia smiled that he accomplished a new goal of forbidden relationship. Chapter 22. 2 years later Issei was 10. He married with Mizuo in secret. She met with his other wives. They had a good bond with her. Issei was at Yusaka home where was with his other wives. Mizuo doesn't know about the supernatural. Kunu and Celia began to slowly develop their bodies. Yusaka and Esha were happy that their daughter are growing. Issei spoke to them, I was thinking we should take a walk. His wives agreed to walk with Issei. They were walking in the city. Kunu would tell Issei about the places of the stores. Issei would appreciate the walk, which gave a peace to his mind. After couple of hours of walking the group were in the woods. Yusaka spoke, this brings back memories with Issei. Mrs. Yua asked, mind telling me? Well, I was chased by men trying to kidnap me. Before I got kidnapped Issei came in my rescue. Though he is kid but he is smart. He made sure I was safe. Kunu responded. Yeah, then I came in and saw Issei had the men tied up. Yusaka spoke. Mrs. Yua nodded at their statement but confused how a kid could tie up the men. Then Issei stops and spoke, we aren't alone. His wives stopped. Yusaka, Kunu, Celia and Esha were alert looking at different directions, but Mrs. Yua was confused. Then in the trees came out stray devils. Mrs. Yua was scared to death to see such scary people. Issei noticed his wife's reaction. She was now learned about the supernatural. Issei was looking around and noticed they were surrounded by hundreds of strays. Issei spoke to his wives, protect Yua. I'll take them. Esha spoke, they are too many for you Issei. Issei spoke, don't worry, I'll be okay. Then a large stray came forth. It was 8 feet tall and muscular body. The stray spoke, kill the boy and that woman. The rest captured them. The strays attacked the group. Yusaka and Kunu transformed to fox woman. Celia and Esha transformed to a succubus. Mrs. Yua was in shock that her friends weren't human. Yusaka made ball of magic and blasted several strays. Kunu did the same but a smaller scale. Celia and Esha used the lust powers and slashed them in their weak state. No matter how much they killed, the strays kept coming. Issei was in the middle punching and kicking left and right. Mrs. Yua was worried for Issei because he was human but was able to keep up with them. Then unexpectedly Issei was caught by the large stray. The stray had him choking. His wives began to freak out, their husband was in hands of a stray. The stray spoke, goodbye human. The stray punched Issei in his gut and sent him flying in the sky. His wives exclaimed, Issei. His wives angered began to cause more destruction, which was making a wasteland. Yusaka cleared out dozens of strays with a large burst of power. Issei was in sky and saw down below that his wives were slowly getting overwhelmed by the sheer number. Issei yelled, I won't let this happen. Then Issei's arms and feet transformed in a dragon. His wings and tail came out. He immediately started diving down. He made a ball of dragonic power. It was doubling the power. Then 200 feet away Issei let out a dragon roar. Everyone looks up in the red streak coming down. Yusaka made a barrier around her friends, then a loud boom came. It made like a nuclear explosion. Hundreds of strays were killed. Mrs. Yua was in shock, the sheer destruction. What she saw shocked her more. She saw Issei with dragon wings and tail. His arms and feet like of a dragon. His eyes were emerald green with fangs in his mouth. Yua spoke, a dragon. Issei spoke to his wives, don't worry, I'm here. Issei turns to the large stray who was standing. The stray was in shock. His legs began to tremble in fear. He pissed off a dragon. Issei spoke with a dragon tone, you'll pay. Issei flew at the stray and grabbed him by the neck and slammed him to the ground. Issei began to punch the stray several times. The stray was scared as fuck. He tried to get away, but Issei didn't let him go. Issei took the stray by the neck and flew 10 feet off the ground. Issei spoke, never attack my wives. Issei opened his claws and stabbed the stray through the stomach. The stray could only look at the dragon with fear. Then stray died and Issei dropped the body to the ground. He landed on ground and looks at his wives. He noticed he scared them. His wives were hugging together, not wanting to agitate him. Issei spoke, I'm sorry that you had to see that. He began to approach his wives, but his wives began to hug tighter. When Issei was close to them, his wives shut their eyes. Then they felt pats on their head. Issei spoke, please don't be afraid of me. I won't hurt you. They opened their eyes and saw Issei still in his dragon form. In his eyes they can see sorrow in his eyes. He felt sorry for scaring them. Then his wives hugged him crying. Mrs. Yua was still scared but felt protected by Issei. Issei wrapped them with his wings. They felt his warmth of comfort. Issei spoke, Yua, now you learn my true nature. I'm afraid that you'll leave me. Mrs. Yua spoke, no Issei, I'm just feel weak. I'm a human. Don't worry. You learned about the supernatural. I'll help you to get stronger. Don't be scared of us. Issei spoke. Yua spoke, okay, I trust you. Issei was glad that his wives were safe. He'll make sure his wives are going to be strong. Chapter 23. 7 years later, a teen was walking in street. He was wearing black jean and a red shirt. His arms had muscles showing. His height was 6 feet and 1 inch. He was Issei Hyoto, 17 years old. Many women that passed by were fangirling over him. He wasn't like bodybuilder, but a well-built body that been training for years. He was heading to his wife home. The men who saw him were jealous of his body, even the tourists that came by. Many women came to the city to see the rumor of handsome person. That women found him, they asked him for pictures. Issei didn't mind but was cautious. He didn't want any supernatural coming at him. Since the fight 7 years ago caught the attention of a supernatural, devil, angel, and fallen angel leaders came to the scene. Yusaka persuaded to not interfere because it is her territory. They all asked Yusaka there was a dragon aura outburst and if she knew who was the dragon. Yusaka told them that dragon doesn't interact with others, it rather lives peacefully. Issei entered his wife home and spoke, I'm back girls. Then Yusaka and Esha came to greet him and kissed him and spoke, hello dear. We missed you. Issei spoke, yeah, it wasn't bad. The trip was boring. Where is Kunu, Celia and Yua? Yusaka responded, oh, they just finishing up their training. Then Kunu appeared wearing a kimono. Kunu had long hair and a ponytail that reaches her shoulders. Her kimono had her large part of cleavage showing. Her bust was quite larger than her mother. Which it was quite noticeable. Kunu approached Issei while her breasts were bouncing and she kissed him. Issei wrapped her arms around Kunu's waist. Kunu spoke, hey Issei, missed me? Sure do. I miss your body of yours. Issei teased. Kunu whispered to Issei's ear, can you do it right here and right now? In front of your other wives. Issei faces turns red and spoke, okay, but you'll wait for your punishment. Kunu face turns red and she was excited for the fun. Then Celia came and saw Issei flirting with Kunu. Celia spoke, forgot one here Issei. Celia was wearing like black transparent shirt and her bust was like her mother. She had soft eyes that gives comfort. This is just a reference. Issei opened on his arms and Celia approached her husband and kissed him. Issei felt his 2 wives' large breasts pressing on his chest. Issei spoke, I missed you Celia. Me too. Celia spoke. Then Issei heard footsteps coming and he looked up and saw Yua. This is just a reference. Yua was now standing with her katana. She spoke, so Issei. We missed you. Then Yua approached Issei and pressed her large breasts on Issei's arm. Then she kissed him passionately. Issei spoke, hey Yua. Then his 2 other wives came behind him and hugged him with their bodies. Issei could the amount squishness of his wives' breasts around him. He felt like his nose is going to bleed. Issei spoke, yeah, I got news girls. They all looked at him and noticed the pain in his eyes. They took him to the couch to sit. Then they all sat on his lap to hear what he has to say. Kunu and Yusaka sat on his left. Celia and Esha sat on the right and Yua sat in middle. Issei spoke, I'm moving next 2 days. Why? His wives asked. My family is wanting a new place to live. My mom is getting sad memories of my father since I was getting older. Do you know where? Kunu asked. Issei responded with a faint smile, town of Koyu. His wives' eyes were wide open and Yusaka, that a devil territory plus sister of Surzurks is controlling it. I know Yusaka, but I wish to never get involved in their factions. If they know I'm a dragon they might kill me or recruit me. The 3 factions want a powerful being on their side. Issei spoke. Esha spoke, I also heard that recently the Red Dragon Emperor is awoken. There is a rumor that it joined the devil faction. Only the leaders know, but if other factions know they might want challenge the emperor. The only reason we have this information your wife is being an ally with the devil faction. Isaka spoke, it true Issei. We want to be good terms with them so no conflict would come to our faction. Issei spoke, sounds reasonable. His wives hugs him tightly, not wanting to let him go. Celia asked, so how are your sisters? Lily is nervous going to a new school. Emilia is mad at my parents for moving out, but I guess she'll get used to it. I'll miss my sexy wives. His wives giggled and they had blushes on their faces. Then he proceeded to kiss each one of them. Lemon, Kunu spoke seductively, if this time you're leaving how about we have fun? Then they dragged Issei to their bedroom. Issei watched as his wives began to strip their clothes. His wives approached him and took off his clothes. He was naked with a 8-inch. His wives kneeled down and began to suck him. Issei spoke, "Wow. You are good as always." Kunu, Celia, Yua and Yusaka giggled while licking his staff. Esha was sucking his member. After a few minutes Issei spoke, "Alright, I'm about to give a load." His wives put their faces close to Issei member. Then Issei came and his wives had their tongues out as semen fell on their faces. They began to swallow their husband's semen out there as some were on their breasts. Issei made them stand up and began groping their large breasts by behind. They began moan of Issei touching. Issei spoke to Kunu and Celia ears, "They're massive as your mothers. I always knew that you get that big." His two wives were mad blushing that Issei compliment them for growing. Isaka spoke, "Issei ah. You really like my daughter ah. Use her as you wish ah." Issei spoke to Kunu, "You hear that? Your mom wants me to use you. You as you wish. My mind ah is broken because of my mother." Kunu spoke. Issei began to kiss her neck as Kunu began to moan louder. Issei would never get tired of groping his wives' breasts because they are large, smooth, warm, and soft. Celia and Esha could feel their bodies getting wet. Isaka and Yua began use their ass and began rub on Issei's legs. Issei spoke, "I know what you want, but let me pleasure you." Issei continued groping his wives' breasts. His wives were squirming and were rubbing their asses on Issei's body. Then Issei threw his wives to the large bed. It was size of 4 king-size beds. Issei watched as his wives' breasts bounced. Issei spoke, "Same as always." His wives spoke with lust, "Yes." They pinned Issei to the bed. Celia and Kunu were the first to get the fun. Celia positioned herself on Issei member as Kunu sat on Issei's face. As Esha and Yusaka put Issei's hands to their entrance. As Yua began rub her body on Issei's chest. Celia went down and began bouncing up and down. It could their skin making clapping sounds. She was moaning in a mess. She spoke, "Ah. Ah. So good." Issei began to eat out Kunu's large ass as she began to moan. Kunu spoke, "Ah. You good as ah always." She began to rub her large ass on Issei's face. As Issei was began drink her love juices. He also began to finger Esha and Yusaka pussies. Esha and Yusaka were moaning as they began massage their breasts. Yua was squirming feeling pleasure of skin contact. After few minutes Celia felt Issei member pulsing. She knew what it meant began move faster. Kunu spoke, "I'm cooming Issei." "As same here." Yusaka, Esha and Yua spoke. Then Issei came inside of Celia and Celia let a scream, "Ah." Issei. Celia her head back with her tongue out. His other wives came also. Issei felt their love juices spraying on him. Then Celia slowly fell on the bed feeling ecstasy. Kunu get off of Issei, then Issei spanked her ass which caused to jiggle. Kunu spoke, "Oh. I see. How about you punish us for being bad girls?" Issei grins and pulled his wives on a doggy style. His wives knew what is going to happen. They began to shake their large ass at Issei. Issei raises his hand and gave swing at his wife's ass. For each spank could hear loud smack and jiggle. After a few minutes Issei looks at his wives' asses and was covered with handprints. Yua spoke, "How about we start where we left off?" They felt their ass stings but they enjoyed. Kunu positioned herself on Issei member. After came Esha, Yusaka and Yua. Issei wasn't done after his wives were in bliss and semen were coming out. Issei dragged Celia and Esha and began pounding them by behind. Then after the rest of his wives. Issei continued to have sex with them, though his wives were mind broken several times. Issei places his hands on Kanu and Celia large ass and began to shake them. Issei spoke, "I'll have fun with these." Celia spoke, "Ah. Yes. Keep breaking us. Ah." Issei grins and began to pound them once again. Kunu and Celia were glad that Issei was able to give the same pleasure as their mothers. After several hours passed till midnight. Issei was laying bed giving his wives rest. He was hugging their asses as their large breasts were pressing on his chest. They spoke having trouble to speak, "We love you." His wives slept on Issei and Issei continued to groping their asses and breasts. Then he eventually fell asleep with them feeling the squishiness of his wives' breasts. End of lemon. Issei knew his new life would be different the time he moves out. What going to happen will be full of questions. Chapter 24. 2 days later the day of moving. Issei was taking a last walk with his wives to the train station. Issei stops and spoke, "I'll miss you girls, but I'll come back." Then his wives began to stroke his hair especially his red streak hair. Kunu spoke, "We know you'll come back a dragon never break a promise. Let's go to the train station." They continued walking and Yusaka spoke, "Don't reveal that you are dragon. Since we can't sense you so they can't. Remember the red dragon emperor has awoken. Dryag will sense you." Issei nodded and placed his arms around his wife's hips until they reached to the train station. Once reaching the station Issei let go and saw his family waiting for the train. Lily turns around and spoke, "Oni-chan. I've been waiting for you." Lily ran at Issei and hugged him. Lily was 10 years old, a young girl with brown hair that reaches her back. Issei spoke, "Hey sis. You nervous?" Lily nodded and spoke, brother. Who are those girls? Issei looks back and saw his wives standing. Issei responded, good friends of mine. Lily nodded at her big brother. Lily wasn't spoiled like her sister. She cares more about her brother than her friends. Emilia was standing with her parents looking at her phone. Emilia was like a gal and was wearing expensive clothes and polished nails. Issei would look disgusted at her sister for being spoiled. Emilia spoke, geez. How long till the train arrives? Issei's stepfather spoke, any minute. Then the train came to the station and stopped. Lily ran to her parents to join them, then people began load in the train. Issei turns to his wives and gave each of them a passionate kiss. Issei spoke, I have to go. I'll be back soon. When I come back I'll be back with fun. His wives smiled and Yua spoke, right, we'll be waiting for you. You are our husband. Then his wives began sniffling and Issei know they are sad to see him go. For the last time his places his hands on their breasts giving them a last touch. Issei spoke, I'll remember the softness of these. His wives smiled and gave him a kiss. Then Issei smiled at them then boarded to the train before it left. Issei sat near a window and looked at his wives. The train started moving and his wives began to wave at him. He waved back as goodbye. His wives began to tear up a bit until the train was out of sight. Isaka spoke, we love you Issei. Esha spoke, Yusaka what now? Live as normal, it's hard without Issei. We must take priority in our faction. Issei will return. The other girls nodded and walked with Yusaka with a new goal in mind. Issei was in the train looking at window with sadness. He'll be missing his home and memories of his father, especially his wives. Issei continues looking at the window as Lily came and sat next to him. Lily spoke, brother. Don't worry, you'll have new friends. Issei looks at his sister and nodded. He was going to a devil territory. He wondered what would be waiting for him. After hours of traveling he finally reached Koyu City. Issei stepped out of the train and saw a new place. It was different from home. He proceeded to follow his parents while looking around. His dragon side was wanting to explore, but he stopped himself to a proper human being. The city was full of people Issei would look. Then after a few minutes they took a ride to their new home. They got there and Issei stepped out of the car and saw his new home. It was in a town of Koyu. It had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. He entered his new home and saw boxes on the floor stacked. Issei took his boxes to his new room, which was top floor in the back of house. He looked at his room and there was bed, a study desk, and a closet. Issei started to organize his stuff. After organizing he locked the door. Issei sprouted his wings. His wings were 18 feet in length. He made sure to not cause any destruction in the room. Then he put wings closed which measured 5 feet long. After a while Issei left the room and went to the kitchen. His mother and stepfather were waiting for the family. Issei's mother spoke, okay. We'll get to the point. Lily will be going to school close by. As for Issei and Emilia will go Koyu High Academy that recently turned boys and girls school. We have your uniforms and already signed the paperwork. Emilia spoke, ah. Really with Issei? Issei's stepfather spoke, we have no choice. Plus mostly is made up of girls. Fine. Emilia spoke. Issei was cautious because he was wondering where is the devils. It could be living in a house or anywhere. Issei spoke, I guess worth a try. Lily was nervous about her new school. She was glad that her big brother is willing to try his new home and school life. As the rest of the day the family started to familiarize with their new home. When night came Issei was in his room sitting on his bed. He had a box on his lap. He opened the box and it was filled with pictures. Some were with his father before he died. Others were his wives. Issei took a moment looking at the photos. After a few minutes he closed the box and went to bed. The next morning would be his first day at school. Chapter 25. The next morning Issei opened his eyes by hearing his alarm go off. His green eyes were shining. He turns off the alarm and get out of bed. He went to the mirror and looked at himself. His body was looking differently. It looked like scales were growing out his body. Issei touched his skin and felt hard as patterns were matched. His tail was stretching and 10 feet long with several spikes on its back. It seems his dragon side was wanting to be free. He didn't understand why his body was reacting. Maybe because of the red dragon emperor that awoken. Issei made his skin normal of a human. He dressed himself up and decided to dye his red streak brown as his hair. He didn't want any kind of attention from the supernatural. He hid so much features that he looked an average boy. If he looked closely he was handsome in every way. He tied up his hair into a ponytail. His clothes were a bit larger than his used to wear. He wanted to hide his muscular body. Then he heard a knock on his door. Are you awake, big brother? Lily spoke across the door. Issei responded, yeah, checking last details. After a minute Issei walked out to the front with his sisters. His family looked at awkwardly because he looked a lot different. Like if he hid his beauty. Emilia didn't care about Issei but sensed that he was hiding something from everyone. Issei spoke, okay, we are off. See you later. Issei's mother spoke, take care of your sisters. Amelia would scoff and left for his Issei and Lily followed behind. After a few minutes Lily took a different direction and went to school nearby. Issei and Amelia continued walking, but there was a gap between them. Issei walked behind her, then they reached to their new school. In front of the school entrance there was two girls standing waiting. One with black hair with a bob cut flat-chested. The other was much taller, long black hair with bust. The two girls approached them. Amelia and Issei waited for them to speak. The short girl spoke with authority, glad you came. Here are your schedules. I'm Sona. I'm the school president and this is Tsubaki vice president. Any questions come to my office. Go now to class. Amelia was dumbfounded that a girl had such authority, also she gave them the right schedules. Issei spoke, thanks. We're off now. Then the two left. Sona and Tsubaki were checking them out if they are humans. Sona spoke, anything. Nothing president. Amelia is a gal and sassy type. Issei on the other hand, there not much history to him. He has two stepsisters and a stepdad. There is nothing about his real father. He used to live in Kyoto his whole life. Subski spoke. This sounds interesting, but I wonder how much he knows about Kyoto. I'll report this to Orc Club president. Sona spoke. Tsubaki asked, what about Amelia? She doesn't spend time in Kyoto. So she ain't that useful. Sona spoke. 1. Tsubaki nodded and she headed to club room. Sona would sigh, wondering why there not much information about Issei. There was no report about what he does at school. Issei and Amelia went to their own classes. Issei was outside of the door and knocked. A man opened the door and saw Issei. The teacher spoke, I see you're new. The teacher entered the classroom and spoke, alright, we have a new student joining us. The boy spoke, let's hope is a hot chick. The girl spoke, I hope is handsome boy, not a pervert. The teacher spoke, alright, quiet. Now you can come in. Issei entered the classroom and stood in front of the classroom. The girls lost hope since it looked as ordinary teenager. The boys were cursing themselves, it's not a girl, but a normal person, luckily for them it's not a handsome person. Issei spoke as he wrote his name on the board, I'm Issei Hyodo. Nice to meet you. I hope we get along. Then he bowed his head. Alright, any questions? The teacher asked. The classroom was quiet that a cricket can be heard. Until a hand rose, it was bald-headed boy. Issei spoke, yes. Which body parts of a girl you like? Boobs or butt? What sizes you prefer? The boy asked. The girls gave death glares at him. Well, both in size as large. Issei spoke without hesitation. The two boys cheered and the girls were getting ready to give a piece of their minds. Also the girls were shaking their head that Issei is pervert, but he kept his composure as a student. The teacher pointed a desk in front of a student that was empty. Issei got close to the desk, but since his classmate was a devil, but also something is inside him. Issei sat in his chair and turned to his classmate behind him. The student was a boy, had muscular body, it was like a bodybuilder. Light blue hair that reaches his neck with light blue eyes. Issei sensed that he had scent of someone familiar. Issei was trying to figure what else he is. Issei spoke, nice to meet you. My name is Francis Devon. The boy spoke with an ego tone. Issei didn't like him, but he wondered what he is hiding. Issei turns head to class and focuses in class. Francis spoke to the voice in his head, hey, do you know him? The voice responded, well, he is human beau. Francis was trying to hear the voice, but could hear the voice was sniffling. Francis asked, Dryag. Oh sorry. He reminded me of someone. Dryag responded. Who? Francis asked. Dryag remained quiet, later spoke, is personal. Francis was confused of his answer, but he wanted to know more why Issei made Dryag sad. Chapter 26. During school, Francis was in Orc room. In the room were 5 girls and another boy. He approached one girl with long pink hair and had a large bust. He spoke, hey babe. She looks at Francis and approached, then kissed him. She spoke, hey darling. Why you came here early? I have something important to speak with president. Francis responded, wanting to talk to me? A red-haired girl came to the room as she spoke. Francis responded, is about the new boy. Riaz nodded with interest and spoke as she was walking to her large desk, yes, Sona told me about him. Does he knows about the supernatural? No president, but Dryag suddenly started to cry because he reminded of someone. Francis responded. But that statement everyone was shook. Dragons don't normally cry unless they lost a loved one or a family member. The president spoke, oh. I wonder why. Kiba, could you bring him to my club? We don't know if he knows about the supernatural. Akeno, please make some tea when we bring him. Kiba was blonde-haired dude and he nodded as Akeno was long black hair and a ponytail and had a large bust. They spoke, yes. The president spoke, Asia, you can be next to me to be safe. Asia had long blonde hair with green eyes. She was nervous around new people. The pink-haired girl sat next to another girl. Which she had short white hair and was eating sweets. Then Francis approached his girlfriend and gave her a kiss before he left for class. She wondered, who is this new boy? Issei was in lunchtime. He was with two boys that were considered perverted duos. Their names were Motohama and Mitsuda. They were sitting under a tree. Motohama was the bald kid and Mitsuda with glasses. Mitsuda spoke, "Yo man. You have high standards for a girl." "Well, I have preferences." Issei spoke. "Well, Motohama and I are into the same thing, my guys. I can calculate a girl bust." Mitsuda spoke as he pushed his glasses back. Issei nodded and spoke, "I see. Why you are telling me this?" Motohama responded with a smile, "It seems you are single and a virgin. You always fantasize about girls in your bed. Don't worry, we have magazines and CD to share with you to see." Motohama pulled CD and magazines out his bag and showed in front of Issei. Issei grabbed the magazine and began to look into it. Motohama and Mitsuda were grinning that Issei would be surprised the size of the women. Issei began to look carefully at each page. Issei closed the magazine and spoke, "What kind lame ass are you? This is nothing. You need something more exotic." The duo were state of shock that Issei wasn't surprised by seeing the magazine. He was like has experience with it. Motohama grabbed Issei's shirt and began shaking him and spoke, "Why are so mean? This was ultra limited version that was made only 50 copies and cost a lot of money. You are saying this is lame. Yeah. You have a bad taste in women." Issei responded. The duo felt insulted that Issei was looking down on them. Mitsuda spoke, "Alright, how we pick some girls right now? That might change your mind." "No." Issei responded. The duo spoke. Issei responded, "I may be a pervert, but I have dignity." Motohama spoke, "Well, your loss. Let's go, Mitsuda." The duo left Issei and picked some girls. Issei laid on the tree and spoke to himself, "Well. I'm not a virgin, I lost mine long time ago." Issei was back to class. It was ending the day. Issei was getting ready to leave until he heard shrieks of girls. Then a blonde boy came in Issei's classroom. He spoke, "Issei Hido is here." "I'm here." Issei responded from his desk. "Our president would like to speak with you from Orc Club." "I'm Kiba." Issei stood up and took his stuff. He sensed Kiba was a devil. He started to think they are going to question that he is dragon. Once reaching a old building, Issei sensed a group of devils inside of the building. He was getting ready to fight just in case. Once entering the building gave a scary vibe and haunted. Kiba knocked the door, then there was response to enter. Issei and Kiba entered the room and saw a red-haired girl with big bust sitting in her chair. Kiba spoke, "I brought him as you asked." The red-haired girl to Issei, "Please take a seat." Issei sat on the couch and began to look at everyone. Then Akeno came in with tea. Issei noted that the two girls were beautiful, but not as his wives. There was two girls sitting on a couch sharing sweets. It was Asia and a white-haired girl. Akeno spoke, "Hey, I'm Akeno Himejima. Here your tea." "Thanks." Issei spoke. Akeno smiled at Issei and gave seductive look at him, but he wasn't buying it. The president spoke, "I'm Riaz Jamiri, president of Orc Club. I was wanting to meet you." Issei spoke, "Really? I mean, is it my first day here? I think there isn't anything outstanding about me." "Well, in our report it says you used to live in Kyoto. Tell me about it. I heard it is beautiful." Riaz spoke. Issei noticed that they were wanting information from him, but why him and not his sister? He also noted that they don't know what he is. Issei spoke, "Well, is it beautiful? They have shrines in hills and mountains. It's famous for tourists. Also there are legends about the place." "Oh, tell me about the legends." Riaz spoke with interest. "Well, I heard that there fox-like humans lived there known as yokai. Among them there is a leader of nine-tailed fox that guards its territory from intruders. That much I know. There are more but I can't recall much." Issei spoke. Riaz nodded her head and spoke, "Sounds interesting. Tell me you believe in the supernatural." Issei was thinking to either say yes or no. Issei responded, "No." Riaz nodded. She checked him out if he know anything about the supernatural. Riaz spoke, "Okay, you can leave." Issei got up and bowed. Before he could leave, the orc doors open. In front of him was Francis and someone familiar. His eyes widened that she was a devil. The pink hair was shocked to see him. Issei spoke, "Aoi." Aoi responded, "Yeah, it me. Never thought I see you of all places." Issei immediately knew that his ex-friend will make his life worse. Issei spoke, "It seems you are doing fine. Better than you?" Aoi spoke with a smirk. "I'm not dealing this bitch." Issei spoke. He started to walk to the door, but he sensed killing intent from Francis. It seems Francis is her boyfriend. Issei left the building and saw his stepsister waiting for him. She was scared heading home alone. Issei spoke, "Were you waiting on me?" No. I just never mind." Emilia spoke. Issei smiled that slowly she has started to open up. They walked back home together without saying a word. Issei had dinner, but he missed the company of his wives. Issei was in his bed revealing his dragon features. The nights would be the hardest time for him to sleep. He would always pictures of his wives in his hands. Chapter 27. After a few weeks, Issei would be living his life with the constant annoyance of his ex-friend. Issei would be looked down. Some of his classmates started to talk bad about him for being with a pervert duo now consider as pervert trio. Issei didn't mind being called a pervert but didn't said anything about a woman body in public. One day he was in his class and a girl called Murayama decided to tease the trio. Well, the trio had a chat about girl sizes but Issei kept his mouth quiet. Murayama spoke, "Hey perverts. What y'all talking about?" Motohama yelled, "Back off. This is bros talk. Yeah, we are talking about girls bust. We are trying to make Issei one of us." Mitsuda spoke. Murayama looks at Issei, but he had his mouth shut but looked at them with no expression. Motohama spoke, "True, but you don't know the boys want. We want big busty girls." Mitsuda spoke, "With my glasses I can see the bust size of a girl in 2 seconds." Murayama spoke as she pushed her glasses back, "Oh yeah? You are not the only one who can do that. I can see the length and width of your manhood. Also I can tell if you are virgins or not. Let's see." Motohama and Mitsuda shriek as Murayama looks at their pants. She spoke out loud, "Motohama, your size is just the size of a eraser. Mitsuda, your size is decent size of a 2 erasers. Still no bitches." The duo looked like they were wanting to cry. Then Murayama looks at Issei, then her lens began to crack. Murayama spoke with a red face, "I can't how." Then she started to walk away from them. Issei was confused, but his dragon side was laughing, he made a girl blush. Then after that class continued. Issei was in lunchtime, he sitting under a tree peacefully. He had eyes closed, but he sensed devils watching him. Then he heard Francis' voice, "Single?" Issei opened his eyes and looks at Francis. "Oh? What about it?" Issei asked, not caring about him. Francis responded, "It seems Aoi and you meet before." Issei responded with a sigh, "Yeah, we did." Then she moved out. Francis spoke, "Too bad for you that you are lonely. Think I care?" Issei spoke was getting angry. Francis spoke mocking him, "Still no bitches." Issei stood up in front of Francis and spoke, "Or at least I got laid in you." Francis was quiet and spoke, "You're joking." Issei grins and spoke, "Actually I slept with 5 girls at once. I see you didn't did the deed with Aoi. Funny for a virgin to say someone has no bitches that got laid." Francis was furious and grabbed Issei's neck and started to lift in the air. Issei broke the grip. Francis was shook that a human was able to break the grip. Francis was blinded by rage and started throw swings at him. Issei moves his head avoiding the punches. Then he made a round kick at Francis' stomach. Francis was getting more frustrated that Issei wasn't trying. He charged back at him. Issei punched Francis in face. Then Francis tried to kick Issei in the air, but Issei grabbed his leg and threw him to the ground. Francis spoke to himself, "No more games." He heard Drake's voice, "Wait. Dawn." Francis spawned his sacred gear in front of Issei. Issei looks at him and the gear that came out of nowhere. Francis started to boost a few times. Issei dragon side was getting excited for a fight. Francis spoke as he charged at Issei, "You'll pay." Issei moved out of the punch's way. He fought back like if it was nothing. Then Issei punched Francis in the face several times. Francis was trying to outmatch him but continued failing. Then Issei grabbed the sacred gear as he caught one his punches. Issei's eyes widened for a moment, then pushed him back. Dryag was also in shock, not to mention he felt relief that troubled him in the past. Then Issei made round spin kick on Francis' head, making him unconscious. Issei's body was shaking and spoke, "Wait. What am I really?" Then Issei looks at sacred gear at Francis' arm. Then Issei heard a green shining and spoke, "Hey." Issei quiet and shocked that a gear is speaking for the first time. Issei spoke, "I guess you are the Red Dragon Emperor that awakened." "Yeah, but I'm overwhelmed with joy. I thought my descendants was killed. You are my last descendant alive. You are the new Red Dragon Emperor. Issei, my child." Dryag spoke as he was fixing to cry. Issei spoke with shocked, "So I'm an emperor." Dryag spoke, "Yeah, here, take one of my scales and insert in you so we can talk." Issei found a shard of red scale and took it. Issei placed it in his chest. Dryag spoke, "Okay, success. We'll talk later as I make arrangements." Issei spoke, "Okay, don't tell anyone about me." Dryag smiled at his descendant and spoke, "Alright." Issei went back to school while leaving Francis. Issei was continued saying to him that he found his true self. He was the Red Dragon Emperor. During school everything was normal. No devils came after him. Maybe Francis knew his mistake, showing a human unnatural, he is trying to hide it. Issei pretended to saw nothing. After school Issei went back home with no troubles. He heard his ancestor speaking, "This your home?" "Yeah, I recently moved in. I should call you Grandpa." Issei spoke. "Sure." Dryag spoke. Issei was in his home as Dryag was silent, looking at the house through Issei's eyes. Issei had dinner with his family, then headed to his room. Issei spoke, "Grandpa, are you still in a sacred gear?" "Yeah, Issei, I'm still in Francis, this is extension of me. Which I'm able to speak to you even Francis can't hear. Tell me about your life, I want to know my descendant is doing." Issei smiled that his ancestor was wanting to know him. He will a good chat with Dryag. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video.